Today, we're interviewing Tom Gamer and telling his crazy story of rags to riches. So Tom is an immigrant from Britain. He came here in 2009 and has built a company from scratch and got it from 6 to 7 figures in less than 3 years. So Tom, I'm curious, and the viewership I'm sure is curious, tell me a little bit about what got you into finance in the first place as a young man and how you made your way to Canada.
As you'll probably see with loads of different industries, people just say they fall into it. I fell into it. I just happened to be good with numbers. So I actually went to school and did a degree in fashion design.
No way.
Yeah. But it became apparent that we were going to move to Canada. And so we needed money. And really, with fashion, you do it for the love, not for the money, unless you're at the sort of upper levels. And so I became a pension specialist in the UK.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned earlier about math and the requirement for math skills to get into finance. Tell me, what point in your life as a young boy did you figure out that, hang on a second, I'm pretty good with numbers and maybe I got something here?
Good question. They actually thought I was autistic as a kid because I liked counting too much. So I would sit there and count beats of songs or count different things that I saw and get frustrated if it wasn't an exact match, which leads into the OCD thing as well. It was just a natural talent that I was just always good with numbers. I could see patterns in numbers. I could see all sorts of stuff, which is why I was groomed for MI5 at one point as well.
Interesting. You're good with numbers, as a young kid in the business at a young age. Tell me a little bit about what your upbringing was like and how you got to a place of, a student in Britain to coming to Canada and building one of the fastest growing financial advising firms in the region. Tell me a bit about that natural progression.
So there are a million different sort of tranches and different avenues, forks in the road that I took. I think the biggest thing that I've learned along the way is once you've made that decision, to really bury yourself in that decision and don't look back. The decision's already made. And so I think that's really helped with my evolution along the years. I'm not going to say I don't have any regrets, but I try and look back at those regrets as learning experiences as opposed to looking at them with sort of despair.
Right. One of the things we're finding with successful entrepreneurs, and I'm curious if you can relate, is that there's usually some kind of pain or insecurity or outcast feelings and mindset for most of us where we never quite felt good enough with our father. We never quite felt accepted at school. We never had all the opportunities others had, or at least there was a hunger and drive created by insecurity or an outcast mindset. Tell me, can you relate to that and tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what created that drive and hunger for you?
All of the above. I come from, I would say, a loveless marriage. Okay, so at a very young age, I was told that I was the failed marriage saver, and 100% resented for that. So I was the reason that my mum and dad couldn't divorce, they couldn't separate, because financially they couldn't do it, and they had to stay together for me.
They made this clear to you?
Very clear. The youngest I can remember being told that, I was 5. It was the youngest I can remember. So grew up not seeing that element of love. And it wasn't that I wasn't loved, but I was definitely used as a pawn as well. So I'd be played off against each other, and it'd be your dad doesn't love you and your mum doesn't like you, and it'd be all stuff like that. So I think I've always had a craving and a desire inside me to be accepted and to be wanted. And I crave recognition way more than money. The money doesn't really matter to me. I want someone to put their hand on my shoulder and say, you did good. That's what really, really pushes me. And so that's the biggest insecurity that I have.
I couldn't relate with you more in that category. And my father would once tell me later on that I did that on purpose because, you were a bit of a braggart and you wanted the attention. I didn't give it to you on purpose because I felt like it's what you needed.
Sure.
But sometimes, do you think about that with your kids as well? That, boy, am I setting my kid up for success or am I setting them up with failure by not giving them enough attention? And I have a different strategy. How about you?
I remember my brother saying to me, just some context here, my brother doesn't allow his children to call him dad because he doesn't want to be tarnished with that name. So they call him Pops. Mm-hmm. And I'm not quite at that level, but I often say to my kids, when I discipline you, you have no idea how much it hurts me. It hurts me way more than it hurts you. But if I allow myself to back down, you're not going to get the right lesson. And so I'm very open with my kids about it. And I can be very, very harsh with my kids. And people look at me and think I'm super strict. And I can see it in their faces. I'm doing it for what I believe is the right reason. I look at other people that I know very, very closely, and I've even said it to their parents. And I've said, look, you did all the wrong things for all the right reasons. Well, you've created adult children because they are totally dependent on you. I'm totally independent, always have been. So I'm going to say I was fully independent when I was 11, but it was not by design. So whereas yours was more design, mine, there's an element of neglect in that.
But tough love creates tough humans.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Now, when you're coming up through the ranks, and let's fast forward a little bit, when you start to become successful, or you start to taste your first, inkling of success, and I'm assuming the math really helped when you got into the finance game. At what point in the bullpen, let's call it, of the other advisors or guys and girls coming up in the same ranks, same sort of level as you, at what point did you realize, I've got something here? And what was it that you had that others didn't that's propelled you to that 7-figure level?
So there was a very clear divide between his ability and my ability. And so that actually helped me because people instantly gravitated to what I was saying. So I didn't have to prove myself because he proved me.
Interesting. So your validation or realization that you had something that maybe others didn't, which propelled you to the next level, wasn't your customers giving you the validation, but it was understanding what the competitors didn't have.
Yeah.
Or the separator was your analytical ability to see what's going on around you and go, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, but what this I'm doing here is working and what here is working.
Yeah, so similar to, like I was saying about my brother and how he doesn't allow his kids to call him dad. Me and him had a conversation once, and he said that he's become a better parent because of he's seen the way that it shouldn't be done. And so I think having that upbringing, I had a natural ability to reflect on that. And so I would see what people were doing around me, and it's probably the British cynic in me as well, but I'm looking at all these faults and looking at all these things people are doing wrong and saying, I'm not going to do that. So I've spent my career not necessarily learning by my own and other people's successes, but through other people's failure.
Interesting. Now that we're getting on the business topic, Tom, and what skills and abilities maybe you had that propelled you to the next level, or at least churned you to the top of the cream, so to speak, with some of the competitors, I'd like to understand how you take a business from $0 after leaving a big firm and starting on your own 3 years ago?
Yeah.
3 years ago to now in the 7 figures in no time flat. And like you just shared with me, you just bought a building and housing another more successful firm as tenants.
Yeah.
How do you get to that place so quickly? Help our viewers and those guys and girls trying to get from 6 to 7 figures understand what you did and how, please.
Sure. So what I did was I bought books of business. So in my industry, you can buy clientele. So I bought books of business that I knew the person leading it wasn't me. And so instantly I can come into that business and they see a shining knight and they see what I do versus what they were doing. And all of a sudden, all this money that they weren't giving to that guy, they now give to me. All the advice he was trying to push at them, they now do with me because I try and explain it to them. So I'm big on education. I'm big on telling people the ways that you can do things, the ways not to do things, but ultimately your skin needs to be in the game with me. Like, we're a team. Whenever I work with any of my clients, we're a team. I am never going to tell you what to do. I'm going to talk to you about what you can do, and we're going to make a decision together. And I think within my industry, where there's been a history of pushy salespeople, that really does resonate with people, and it's what people want to see.
What I find most interesting about what you said is that if you're buying books from other advisors, it sure didn't take long for your clients to realize that you had a level of skills and ability and leadership that maybe the other person didn't. And I didn't see that as a competitive comment towards somebody else. I'm seeing that from a client's perspective going, if these clients are coming to you and giving you more money, you're doing things that others aren't.
Sure.
So maybe skill and ability is a big piece and part in why you become successful.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
If you were a 30-year-old coming up through the ranks again, and we're at that or entering into the 6 figures and starting a young family like we were in that place, what's the best advice you can give them to get their business to 7 figures?
Be a sponge. see what's happening around you, really sort of soak that up and put it in your own ways and see the failures and learn from them and see and listen to the experiences of other people, and don't be so afraid of your own failure that you let it cripple you. Don't be so resolute in your own mindset that you're not willing to change. Just like with physical alterations, when you're trying to change your body, understand that there are people who have been there before. There are people who have done it. Learn from what they've done, but don't necessarily take that as verbatim. Actually tweak that to yourself and to your own ability.
When you're struggling or you've gone through times of complacency, which we've discussed, do you double down on what you're doing, or do you stop, relearn, invest in education, and find a new place to hit your head against the wall?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. I'm going to say that's a little bit contextual. So there are some times when I just say, look, you just need to keep going or do more. You know, it's amazing how that 10% more has such a dramatic effect. But there are other times when you need to look at it and say, look, I've given it that little bit of more. It's not doing exactly what I want it to do. Okay, maybe I need to reevaluate.
Today's episode is brought to you by Intigen Wealth and Hogan & Co. Media. Thanks so much for your time, Tom.
Cheers, buddy.
Appreciate you very much. And for you young entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneurs looking to get from a 6 to a 7-figure income, like, share, and follow. And please ask to be a guest, because we're looking for more successful folks to learn from.